Hey guys, this is JJ and welcome to CG Market Watch Live. So I've taken kind of like a technical break for the last two sessions, and now I'm back again. May not be coming back next week as well, but hey, it's good. I think for me to come back on a Friday to kind of summarize the market for today. And just to talk about a little bit about the correlation between the stock market plunges and cryptocurrencies. All right, so I think this will be the main topic for today, and I'm gonna cover a few articles with that, and also talk about the charts to kind of just prepare you for the weekends. Okay, so this is the coin market cap once again, and we are looking at the market cap at 208 billion. Volume, it's low. This is tragic, right? It's hovering about 8 billion. They're about 9 billion. So about $9 billion of 24 hours volume. This is very, very low volume in terms of 24 hours. We could see the BTC dominance kind of heading up slightly to 53.8%. So that's kind of a sign telling you that people are risk off as of now, and going back towards BTC, where it's kind of like the safer way, or kind of like the place where they think it's more stable. Of course, with that, we also see Tether going up 0.15%, and I think and I suspect that certain stable coins might also enjoy from this particular dip from BTC. So you see true US dollars going up as well. Whereas for the rest, let me just search for it. I think it's here. Okay, let's see Gemini dollars here. Gemini dollars went up as well. Pesos and Pesos went up 0.06% as well. So what's happening right now in the market is it's very, very quiet. It's consolidating once again, and there's not much movement coming through the crypto market. And we can also see 24 hours volume has been very, very low. I don't think this is just today. I think this is the whole week. I've been away, but I'm still monitoring the markets as always, and I realized 24 hour volume is really, really low, right? And when we kind of just look through the different exchanges, you also kind of realize that the volume traded on different exchanges is pretty low as well. Okay, so this is what's happening. We could see how Binance volume is dipping as well, and OKX is going up, so on and so forth. All right, so this is not a good illustration on what's the volume being traded as of now in the whole entire market. But what I say is that we are looking at certain events that might be happening today. Let me just zoom in slightly for you guys. So we do see CME October last trade. The futures are closing today, and they'll be closing on trading terminates at 4 p.m. GMT, so it will close at that point in time. And the rest of the different partnerships, okay, and different tokens that are available, or the news that's happening today on 26 October. So I won't go into detail, just telling you what it's up, but generally the markets and most Telegram groups are talking about a CME closing for today, and therefore there's a lot of prediction that, hey, the market will tank, and so on and so forth, and that's therefore the volume in the whole entire market is very, very weak. And certainly because it's Friday, the normal market cycle happens. This is a take profit day, so yeah, it happens, right? So people are taking all profit off the market. So the greatest question now would then be, what is happening in the market, right? So Asian stocks actually hit 20-month low. S&P futures slides as investor flee risk. So what was happening was that because of how the market just dipped so suddenly, it has kind of erased off 2018 gains, and that's very significant. And we are talking about a short-term dip or short-term plunge in the stock market that actually resulted in people losing their gains in that sense. All right, and is that too much panic to call for, right? What exactly is happening? So I won't be going through this article in great details, but I think this particular article did summarize it very nicely. It's found on CCN, stock market plunges but has no impact on crypto. So this is where I got my inspiration on and today's topic, and I'll just be discussing this particular article first, and then we will be talking about the prices and the charts. Okay. So basically, this week, the US stock market deleted all of its gains made in 2018 amidst a major sell-off, right? So the crash seemed to have no impact whatsoever on the crypto market, okay? And there's no sign of inverse correlation. Now, so let me just kind of define slightly what does inverse correlation means. Now, what it meant is this. Now, inverse correlation means if, let's say, there's a huge sell-off in the stock market, all right, and people are seeking for a risk, it's a risk-off particular place to park their funds in. So you see, it's tough for investors to withdraw all their cash straight into the bank. Usually there'll be a custodian wallet or somewhere where they can store their funds, so that they can move into the next instrument and move into the next asset class in that sense. So with that being said, what it's trying to say in this first phrase is that when there was a sell-off in the stock market, they are assuming that people will move their money or their funds from the stock market into the crypto market. But we are not seeing that relationship. There's no inverse correlation in that sense. So what exactly is happening, or what is the result, or what could be driving this particular panic sell-off, right? So there's a few reasons that are covered here. I think this is quite extensive, so I'm just gonna cover it slowly for you guys to just understand. We are possibly affected by the trade war between China and US, okay, along with the increase in Fed rates, interest rates, and the US stock market suffered one of its worst short-term crashes. And also Asian market is actually more vulnerable than the US, and also there's a gradual decline in the growth rate of China's economy. Now, sad to say, but we are not seeing a very healthy world economy, right now. I mean, you talk about the Eurozone, you talk about the UK, Brexit, you talk about US situation or protectionism, you talk about how China's growth has been, dampened. Like, there is just not many good news around the world, right? And Asia stocks, emerging market stocks are not doing that well because it's pressured by the rising rates or Fed rates, interest rate in the US, and therefore exports into US are taxed heavily. There's a huge tariff on it. I cut down on my trading in terms of trading between the countries. And then the next question is, where do I park my funds in? So you could see yen, which is a risk-off particular currency that is of a risk-off kind of positioning. Swiss franc as well. So Japanese yen, Swiss franc will tend to appreciate during risk-off seasons. Of course, you talk about certain commodities, gold, silver, they're kind of like a good alternative asset to kind of hedge your risk. But my greatest question is Bitcoin a risk-off or a risk-on asset? Is there an inverse correlation? So in that sense, what the article is trying to say is that since the worst sell-off in terms of the stock market did not kind of boost BTC's price in any sense, that could kind of conclude that we may be at a very early stage, right? We don't know yet, but we can kind of conclude that BTC may not be the digital gold that we've been looking at. It's not as of a store of value, or there's not enough custodian wallets, right, to support this particular switch from different asset class to another asset class, right? So the cryptocurrency market is not yet as ubiquitous or as spread all around for custodian wallets to shift funds around, and therefore not as many people are going into BTC when the stock market did deep, right, or did plunge. So that is the greatest question here. Well, how do we then define cryptocurrency's correlation between it with the stock market, right? So the article went on to actually explain, we're talking about gold and different precious matter. The value of crypto market actually depends on the supply and demand within the market, unaffected by the performance of the global economy. Now, one thing that I want to share is gold and precious metals, we talk about demand and supply, right? So when a new gold mine is being found, we actually realize, or if it's a huge gold mine being found, you actually realize that that could actually potentially affect the price of gold, right? And gold is being seen as a store of value and also kind of like a hedge. So that's why what it's trying to imply is that it's similar to cryptocurrency market, where when you see huge sell-off in terms of the stock market, it doesn't have as much impact on the BTC market. Now, with that being said, okay, so we could just read the rest of it. But there's a slight difference that I want to kind of explain, is that the recent stock market sell-off is due to a few reasons, right? So I already mentioned that just now. But there's also a small correlation, I feel, personally, between the tech stocks and also a cryptocurrency world, right? So if you realize that in a few weeks ago, when Dow Jones went down by a few percentage, you realize that cryptocurrency world or cryptocurrency market per se kind of dipped quite significantly as well. So I'm not sure whether there's a huge correlation here going on, but we kind of see that, hey, tech stocks does have a huge correlation, or kind of like a similar correlation between the stock market, the tech stock market, and cryptocurrency market as well. Why? Because cryptocurrency market could be defined as a tech on its own. Blockchain is a technology. Whatever that is doing, undermining, using blockchain, decentralization, network, whatever, it's kind of described as a tech kind of advancement, right? Or even though blockchain has been here for a very long time, but that's how it's being seen. Or certain companies are being heavily impacted, right? That has a huge investment in the blockchain space or even in cryptocurrency. When their stocks get affected, it could potentially in the future may affect the cryptocurrency market as well. So it's right now what I can really say is that we are kind of at the infancy stage, where we kind of define where does big cryptocurrency, or where does blockchain companies, or where do they actually lie? Do they lie as a risk-off, risk-on asset? Do they lie as a tech kind of situation, or do they lie as a stock? Or do they lie as a commodity? Do they stay in the real estate, commodity? Different classes, risk off, risk on. So there's so many categories that we could classify cryptocurrency, but as of now, no one could really say that confirm this is it, right? Cryptocurrency belongs to this particular category. No countries are able to even regulate or say that it's a security. They can't really define it as of now. So I think it will take some time, definitely, for us to draw certain historical records to kind of see whenever there's the stock market sell-off, is there a correlation with the cryptocurrency market? I think that's what we need to kind of just research on it. And also understand that at the same time, right now, we don't have enough historical data to kind of just track and trace back whether there's a huge correlation between the two. But I think the one thing that we can note, and the one thing that I want to see, I'm very excited to kind of just predict what's going to happen next, is this. When the next economic downturn does come, when the next huge recession all over the world, global recession hits, everyone's unemployed, and so on and so forth, what will happen to BTC then, right? So will it still be considered as a store of value, a good hedge against what the world's happening, or would it just be kind of like a speculative asset where you buy it for speculative value, you kind of store it, yes and no, you kind of treat it like a kind of like a speculative asset where you sell in and out, so on and so forth, right? So that is my greatest question. Where do we define it? How can we define it? What are the ways to define it? No one has a way to define it. Are there enough historical data to back what I'm trying to convey, what I'm trying to say here? We don't have enough back data, right, to even backdate about BTC's movement. And as of now, we don't see how it's kind of linked to the global economy, okay, of how the status or performance of the global economy, because it's still kind of dependent on supply and demand. Right, so as the circulating supply of BTC kind of increases, or the total supply is kind of fixed, we kind of realize that if supply is fixed and demand goes up, basic economics, prices will go up, right? So the next question will then be what will potentially be certain news or certain global economy factors that will affect the price of BTC. So that's what I'm very, very concerned about as well, okay? So anyway, the next question here is lack of correlation is not equivalent to inverse correlation. Okay, there exists no clear trend which suggests that the struggle of global finance market leads to a positive price movement in the crypto market. Well, ultimately, in the upcoming years, as cryptocurrency become more appealing to institutional investors, digital asset could become a viable alternative to gold and other traditional store of value. So this is what I am also talking about, right? So if, let's say, in the future, more banks, more institutions, more fund houses, more ETFs, whatever you name it, when they start opening custodian wallets and they link traditional assets with cryptocurrency assets, and they basically say, look, if you join my custodian wallet, if you join my exchange, if you join my bank or whatever, you can open an investment account where you can invest into these two sets of particular different asset class, right? You can choose either the traditional stock market, or you want to try something more tasty, you can try cryptocurrency, right? So that, in that sense, we can then backdate and compare, because now there is an ease of transferring funds from the traditional stock market to cryptocurrency, and then there is this relationship in between, and therefore we can then draw data from it and conclude that, hey, when people shift funds, or when the market is not doing as well, traditional markets, people are shifting funds to cryptocurrency. So there has to be a central point to meet, or a midpoint where they have to meet, which is the custodian wallets, the institutions, the banks, and the custodian wallet that they have, so that funds can be moved in that sense. All right. Then when the link is here, we may then kind of conclude that there's a correlation, there's no correlation, there's inverse correlation, so many different factors that could potentially affect. All right. So moving on. Now, there's also a quick news flash. CNBC crypto trader claims Coinbase is preparing for an IPO. So we're not sure whether this is true, right? We also know that Coinbase has been listing, or has been rumored to list a lot of different tokens, and therefore these few tokens started pumping, right? I think in the statement was out perhaps in July or August, if I remember correctly. They talk about Stellar, 0x was listed, BAT could potentially be, and Ripple as well. There's so many rumors about it, right? So we will see. Okay, we will see which one will be the next one. I have no idea which one could be the next one, right? But IPO of Coinbase will be quite interesting, all right, because it's really how a blockchain or how a cryptocurrency wallet company is able to develop itself into such an extent, and even being able to IPO itself. All right, so let's go on to next point, okay, which is our charts. Okay, so let's talk about BTC US dollars on Gemini, and then we'll trace back to Binance, which is against Tether. So of course, 2 weeks ago or last week we have this Tether fight going on, but still it's still here, alright, and Tether is gaining strength, right, and so strength is returning back to Tether, and so we should cover it as well. So let's talk about Gemini first, okay, against US dollars fiat. Now what we are seeing here is a very basic 4 hours chart, okay, so nothing much to really talk about it. You could see how well it kind of consolidates between a certain range, okay, and personally I'm really looking at 6349 or 6350 being the support, and whereas resistance will be about 6415. So this is based on the Kumo cloud here, okay, Senko span B. So this is potentially the next point that we need to talk about, or when it comes to bridging out, okay. When it comes to daily, the daily chart doesn't actually look very pleasant. I mean, the Kumo cloud is actually pressuring it downwards. It's a huge space between the cloud, and it's a huge thickness of it, and therefore pressuring down the price of BTC. So therefore we may not even see a recovery that quickly. Hopefully when I don't know when bug is coming, right? Some people say it's coming in November, some people say it's going to get approved in November, going to launch in December, and that's what the statement that was made. But there's a lot of different news coming in saying bug will be released earlier. It's so hard to kind of get first-hand information in the crypto space, right? You never know which news is legit. So I just want to talk about it when it's firm up, okay? So anyway, so like I say, with against US dollars, there's very low volume that's happening right now, right? So even when I add the OBV side, you can still see that volume is dipping. Okay, let me just change the colors for you guys. You guys can see better. All right, so you can still see the volume dipping. It isn't very fantastic, not pleasant at all to see. But what can I say is we have really found a very strong support, right? So unless this support is broken at 6345, 6350 levels, we may see further downside from there on. If not, we should be pretty okay as long as we survive above this level. So guys, don't be looking at $5,000, $4,000. It's kind of very difficult for Bitcoin to go there anymore. The value is defined at about this level. So if you are looking at dollar cost averaging, or perhaps buying some, this could be the range that you could look at. Now, when it comes to Tether's price, now you could still see a small discrepancy between the price against Tether and US dollars as well. In fact, it's about $150 or so, right? So what I personally would believe is that this price has to catch up, right? Like 2-3 weeks ago, when the prices are more or less the same, okay, or slightly different, the discrepancy or the gap between the two are not that huge, but it's still $150. That's quite significant. So what I personally believe is either number one, BTC against US dollars price, this particular price will head upwards, and this price will go downwards slightly to kind of just match up in the middle, or US dollars value would go up, and then this against Tether's value would kind of just sustain so that it catches up or average out in that sense. Okay, so this particular correlation or this particular gap, it's kind of causing, or it's kind of making the market consolidate, because no one knows where it's going next. So no one wants to make a next big decision on either buying or moving the market, because no one knows where it's going, right? What the heck, man? Combined with today's futures closing Friday, and also bugs launching got delayed to December. We don't know when. So there's so much different factors going on in the market. It's so uncertain. No one's making huge moves. I can guarantee you that. All right. So BTC against Tether, what's happening is it looks slightly better as compared to the US dollars one. The cloud, it's less thick in that sense, right? It's kind of coming together. There could be a potential movement, from 3rd November onwards, so which is next week. So we should probably just focus on next week, right? If not, guys, like it's coming to weekends, don't expect large movement coming from BTC unless certain news move it. But as of now, the 6650 range in terms of BTC/Tether has to be broken, and a level has to close above it on a daily chart, then we can kind of conclude that we have broken out of this level and the cloud, and we are above the cloud, and therefore safe, right, in that sense. If not, well, BTC will just basically consolidate within this range for now, all right, unless volume supports it. Okay, so let's talk about the saddest thing, which is Ethereum. Why? We could see it sustaining. I wouldn't say sustaining. I would say trying to survive, right? This very brutal dip again. You can see that it's the cloud. It's still way below the cloud, below Kijun below Tenkan-sen line. It's not doing fantastically. Not doing fantastic. We could see many red daily candles, right? So it's a sad thing. So in any case, I think it's kind of reached a new, I would say a new year low in a sense, right? Okay, maybe it's not a new year low, but it's low, right? So if guys, if you're really looking at getting some Ethereum, what can I say? Below $200 would be pretty okay, I guess, because it's really kind of like it's really low, right? And perhaps below 189 would be a good level, I would say, because it's really heavily pressured and suppressed for Ethereum. And I think one of the reasons is because the market is just kind of still in a bearish state. It's still very uncertain, and the only way that Ethereum could really start moving again is when ICO projects, or when projects use Ethereum to, you know, code, and then once again launching the ICO using Ethereum platform, and therefore you may see some movement coming from it again. But ICO projects are not doing as well nowadays, so they will then, you know, have to leverage on the bullish market sentiment in order for them to start raising funds again, and then Ethereum will start moving later on, right? So this is just my own speculation. I'm assuming, I'm just disregarding every particular fundamental news on Ethereum. I'm just saying in terms of technical and sentiment, that could be it, right? So that could be the next wave of how Ethereum could move potentially in the future. All right. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll probably see you in 2 weeks later, but take care, and yeah, happy trading, safe trading. See you guys.